Jenny Mosher, and today I'm talking with Julie Ankers, author of books about life over 50. Join me as we learn about the people and passions that inspire Julie and what gets her out of bed in the morning. G'day, Julie. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Jenny. Really wonderful.
That's good. That's good. Thanks for joining me. Now, you're the author of 3 books with us,
Yes.
Feisty, Fabulous and 50 Plus.
Yes, I'll hold it up. That's that one. And I'll explain later why it looks so well used.
Cool. All right. And then following that, Call Me Frank,
Yes.
which was men's stories, yeah.
Yes.
And then following that, Bold, Brave and Bloody Brilliant.
Indeed.
All collections of stories from people aged 50 and over.
That's right.
About how they've navigated life in their senior years, their challenges since turning 50 and what compels them to keep going. So
That's right.
What inspired you to put these books together, to get these interviews?
Well, because I was basically over 50.
Mm-hmm.
I'd moved to the Blue Mountains and
Yeah.
I decided that when I moved up here, I'd been in business for over 20 years.
Right.
And I was totally burnt out. I moved to the mountains because I decided that I needed a huge break. And I basically wanted to semi-retire.
Yeah.
And so I kept the business going. I had a colleague who kept it going in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I decided when I got up here, I hadn't planned anything. So I moved up here and then I realised that, well, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Because after a few weeks, I was feeling refreshed, fantastic. I didn't particularly want to go hurtling back into the business. So I thought, well, what do I do? I hadn't planned. And a lot of people do this. They move for a tree change or a sea change. They get there and they say, well, what do I do? Because they're so used to working or whatever. So basically what happened is I thought, well, if I'm feeling like this, there must be a lot of other people my age who are feeling like this. And I was about 63 when I moved up here.
Okay.
And so I moved up here and I thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect stories from men and women about what they're doing. How they keep themselves motivated, what gets them out of bed in the morning, how they're coping with retirement, etc., etc. And so anyway, the first book, Feisty, that's how that began. Because what I found out, or what I realised, is a lot of women reach their 50s, and once the kids, for example, if they've got children, have left the nest, they tend to come into their own.
Yeah.
And then because they've put their lives on hold to a certain extent, and they decide, look, I'm going to open that business, or I'm going to study, or I'm going to do art or whatever. So I thought that I would approach women that I knew, and I was fairly well networked. So because I'd been the national president of a women's business group.
Yeah.
So I decided to put the word out around Australia. And
you did it Australia-wide, not Blue Mountains or not Sydney-wide.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Well, because the women in it, because with this business network that I was involved in, we had women from every state as members.
Right.
So I called on a lot of them, then they recommended other people, and before you knew it, I had over 20 stories.
Yeah.
And I asked each woman for 4,000 words and a couple of good pics, preferably a portrait shot and one of them actually doing what they loved. And it all came together. And it was just fantastic. It was really, that was the first one. I wrote that came out about a year after I'd moved up here.
Yeah.
And I didn't look back from there. And then what I realised is that I do a lot of speaking about the books because my target market is people, who are in the 50 plus age group.
Yeah.
And they respond better to face, I find. So a lot of them come to libraries.
Right. So you do library talks?
I do a lot of library talks.
Right.
And it was at the libraries that I noticed these men were sitting in and they were really enjoying what I was talking about. And so that's where my second book, Call Me Frank. Yeah. Because I find with a lot of men that, a lot of women tend to say that men aren't very frank or they're not very open. So I thought, well, let's call it Call Me Frank. Yeah. And I found that the men were incredibly open. They revealed things to me that they've never told anybody else.
Well, that's good.
And
I'm happy to have that even published, like released to the public.
That's right. And
that's good.
And one fellow went on to write 80,000 words toward his first book.
Wow.
And men told me about sexual abuse, alcoholism, you name it. It all came out. In fact, in some ways, they're a lot more open than the women.
Yeah.
The women just wanted to get on with it, I found, that a lot of them were, as I said before, starting businesses or had been in business but were really ready to fly.
That's
And
interesting, isn't it?
yeah, and then with the men were a lot of them were becoming a lot more introspective, I think, about
Mm.
their lives, and I'm very proud of that book because a lot of my girlfriends said, "Look, it's never going to happen. Men just don't open up. They won't tell you anything. It'll all be about sport," which I thought was a bit rude. And I said, "Well, let's see. Let's just
Yeah.
see."
Yeah.
And they didn't talk about sport. They talked about how their thoughts about life, where they were headed, the mistakes they thought they'd made, how they wanted to rectify things. And
Yeah.
when I speak at libraries, I tend to read from the books.
Yeah.
And I bring along Kerry Chater because Kerry worked with me on the editing of the books.
Yeah.
And Kerry has a great voice. So together I start by talking about how the books came into being, and then Kerry will read from it. And because Kerry is also a writer and does a lot of work around memoir writing,
Right.
a lot of people tend to ask her questions and so on and so forth. So so to date, we've been, you name it. Well, I won't say we've been everywhere. We've still got a lot of places to go, but
Yeah.
we've been to Western Australia, we've been to Kalgoorlie, we've
On my
spoke,
bucket list.
yeah, we've been to the Perth Club. We've spoken at other places around Perth.
Yeah.
We've south coast of New South Wales.
Mhm.
Where else? Oh,
So
inland. We're fairly intrepid.
you
Uh,
don't limit it to New South Wales or places you can
no,
drive to.
no,
You
no.
go a distance and yeah.
Bateman's Bay, go down there, and so what often happens, because Kerry is a colleague in arms, as I call her.
Yeah.
Kerry, what she might do is she might run a session on memoir writing, and that works in very well with my
Mm.
promotion of the books. And when I gave the talk at Nowra, I said that I was going to embark on writing a book with men's stories,
Yeah.
and I said, did anybody know of anybody that they could recommend that I could talk to?
Mhm.
And this little hand went up at the back, and it was Len. And
Oh.
Len said, "Julie, I've had a fairly dramatic life."
Mm.
He probably didn't use that word, but it was a dramatic life. And he said, "Can I talk to you after you finish your talk?" And I said, "Sure." Well, one of the things that he was known for was his ability to calm people down when they were nearing death. And
Right.
that's a pretty amazing ability.
Yeah.
And he was often called on to do that. And
Yeah.
he would just come into a room where somebody was raging against the fact that they knew that they only might have only had a couple of hours left in their lives or whatever. And he would just sit with them very, very calmly and not
Yeah.
even speak.
Yeah.
And he would see the anger dissipate, and then
Yeah.
they would. He told me of one gentleman who then quietly put his head on Len's shoulder, and and all of the anger had dispersed.
To be
And
able to do that for somebody
well,
would be wonderful.
exactly, and he is the most gorgeous man. I mean,
Yeah.
I really value my meeting Len, because he was such a giving person.
Yeah.
He didn't mind talking about the fact he used to be an alcoholic and what drove him to it,
Yeah.
and some of the horrendous things that had happened in his life.
Mhm.
Um, I was just so honoured to be able to publish his book.
Yeah.
And honestly, to this day, I'm just so proud of that book. I mean, I'm proud
Yeah.
of the three of them, but I think, and I know my first book sold really, really well. A lot of people loved Feisty
Yeah.
because it was a fun book as well. But
Yeah.
with Call Me Frank, it was 20 men
Yeah.
telling me like it really was for them.
Yeah.
And that was such a privilege. And so when I go around and talk about the books, I always make a bit of a fuss about that book
Yeah.
because I'm just so proud of, because when you're let into people's lives, it's a privilege.
It
When
is. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
tell you things that other people and never know about them.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I started doing this book, and often what I say in my talks, is that a lot of people pass away with the music still in them.
Yeah.
And often they're still seen as somebody's mother or somebody's father or, a brother or whatever. And nobody often knows what they really were about as people, what they wanted for themselves, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I say that, you see this massive heads going nodding
Mm. Mm.
because a lot of people feel as they get older too. I think that, oh well, nobody's really interested, so I'm not going to rabbit on about this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
And it's a big mistake we make, and I think
Yeah.
we often owe it to our families to let them know about
Mm.
who we really are, what our thoughts are. I
Mm.
mean,
What drove us, and
that's
yeah,
right,
what
because
we
when we're
felt about things.
exactly, because when we're 50 plus, we don't stop feeling and thinking. We do all of
No.
that,
No.
and
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
third book,
Yeah.
I know, the third book is Bold, Brave, and Bloody
Bloody
Brilliant.
brilliant. Yep. Yep.
And
The four B's. Yeah.
yes, and what sets this apart as well was that some of the stories, and I don't go on about it, or they don't go on about it, but there are a number of people in it who are seriously ill.
Right.
And it's just often their take of where they're at in life,
Yeah.
how they're coping with their illness. Like one woman in there, Anne Tischlinger, is the most gorgeous person. She lives in Austria, but
Right.
she has motor neurone disease, and she
Mm.
wrote she wrote her story with two fingers
Oh,
on
good
her
on her.
phone. You
Yeah.
know,
Mm.
and and she's such an intelligent, gorgeous woman. I mean, she started, I think it's the Poisons Institute or whatever at Sydney University,
Yeah.
um, and she's just fantastic.
Yeah.
And then I also have somebody else in there who has Parkinson's. And as I said before, not every story is about somebody's illness,
No. No.
but it's a fact of life. Often as we get older, we get these things.
Well, I was going to say, as we near that final bell,
That's
something has to make it ring. So it's either going to be something sudden or something that, yeah,
That's right,
yeah,
and so here are people sort of really opening up about what's making them tick,
yeah,
and also lots of stories about people, what gets them out of bed in the morning, like
yeah.
yeah.
So
So
what gets you out of bed in the morning?
what gets me out of
What
bed?
drives you?
Well, apart from the fact I'm now working or about to start work on my fourth book, and this fourth book is totally different to the other three.
Yeah,
This is really about it's about homelessness,
yeah.
and it's about older women and the fact that this is the fastest growing sector in.
Really?
Yes, and there is well. I started an organisation up here. When I say I started an organisation, it's a branch of an organisation called the Older Women's Network,
Right.
and we started it February of this year, and we've got about 46 members now,
Gee.
and it's going strong.
Yeah.
And it's about the rights of older women because
Hmm.
too often I think older women tend to be dismissed. Um, there's a lot of older women are subject to violence,
Yeah.
and so basically, I thought that yes, we needed a branch up here because we have a lot of people retiring to the Blue Mountains,
Yeah.
and I thought the rights of older women. I'm an older woman, and I thought, well,
Yeah.
fantastic, let's get behind this. So we started it up, and basically, I mean, it's fantastic. We do a lot of advocacy work around homelessness and so on. But
So why are older women becoming homeless? Why is that a
well,
thing?
well, they're becoming homeless because of the fact that they have very little superannuation for a
Right.
whole for a whole a lot of reasons. One of the things is they take time out of the workforce to raise children. Often they go back to work part-time. They're often seen, if mum and dad get sick, they're often seen as having to do a lot of the caring. So women just don't, there's a whole heap of reasons behind it, but it just basically means that women often end up having a third of what men have in the way of
Right.
superannuation, if they have
Okay.
any at all.
I suppose too, with the change in the divorce laws 40
That's
years
correct.
ago, there's a lot more single older women than there
Well,
would
there
have
are.
been 30, 40 years ago. So
Yeah.
they're not, yeah, so they would have been on their own. Yeah, I
Well, you
see.
think you
Yeah.
will work it out. Just imagine if a couple get
Mm,
married in their, they say, late 30s or early 40s, and
mm,
then they've bought a house. Well, they probably at that stage haven't paid off the mortgage,
yeah,
so the house has to get sold,
yeah.
and then the mortgage has to be, to be paid out,
Paid off.
etc. And then usually whatever's left isn't enough for
Yeah,
a woman
yeah,
to get a mortgage.
yeah,
And it's very difficult, and often, especially if the divorce has been a fairly ugly one,
yeah.
she may not work for a while, or whatever.
And I
She might
suppose,
she might
yeah,
have the children as well.
or
Uh,
if it happens later when she's in her 50s or 60s,
that's right.
then she doesn't have that ability to go and get a high paying job or something and start
That's
all
right.
over again.
That's right.
It's whereas he might have the super.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Mm.
Well, but
Although,
if
yeah,
people are interested, they can go to OWN, OWN,
yeah,
New South Wales, and look and Google it, and look and just look at all the advocacy work we
it's the
do
Older
around,
Women's
yeah,
Network. Yeah.
around domestic violence, etc., etc. We are very strong advocates for the
Hmm.
rights of older women. But so anyway, so I started the branch up here, and I had some really fabulous women
Yeah.
that I knew, and they said, "Look, we'll help you. We'll get behind you." And so we have a terrific team,
Right.
and so we started OWN, and then it's OWN Blue Mountains, OWNBM,
Hmm.
and you can also find us on the OWN New South Wales website.
Yeah. So that's getting you out of bed in the morning. You were doing a radio show, a community radio show, hosting one at one point.
Yes,
You're still doing that?
I'm
Yeah.
doing one on Monday mornings, 11 o'clock on
Yeah.
Radio Blue Mountains 89.1.
Hmm.
And the title is Feisty, Fabulous and 50 Plus,
Oh, okay.
after my first book. And I also about to embark on I'm going back to one I was doing last year. I was doing for 4 years, called Art House, on Thursday nights, because
Right.
we have so many creatives up here. You
Oh, yes. Blue Mountain's full of them. Yep.
you
Yeah.
have to have a community radio show that is
Yeah.
about what are the creatives doing? And
Yes.
they have suffered so much during the lockdown, as
Yeah.
business has and tourism has
Yeah.
up here. So yes, I'm starting that. So I'll be doing two
Oh, okay. Wow. So,
for my teams.
so,
Yes.
so this is why you have to get out of bed in the morning. You've got too much on your plate, Julie.
Well, yes, I've got a lot on my plate.
With your books, the last three, they were interviews and what have
Yes.
you. Have you ever thought of writing, like writing yourself? Do you create yourself? Do you create fiction writing, or do you create art or anything yourself?
No, I guess if you looked at my site profile, I'm seen as a director promoter.
Yeah.
So I had a speakers bureau for about 27 years,
Hmm.
and that was the business that I had.
What does
And
a speak? So what does a speakers bureau do? Do you?
well, it was a speakers and trainers bureau. Basically, what I did is I represented people who are professional speakers who spoke at seminars, at conferences, etc.
Oh, okay.
And I did that, and I also found work for training consultants.
Right.
And I did that. I started that from scratch. I just decided, okay, I'm going to do this, and it was something that was so close to who I was as a human being. I mean, I love promoting people,
Yeah.
and I was able to really indulge myself with that. And so, and I was promoting a lot of writers who are also speakers. So,
Right.
yeah, so that was that.
Oh, okay. So you don't have that thing yourself to go and paint or mold things or write things
Look,
so much.
People have said to me, Julie, why have you always been in the background? And I don't really feel that, because I go out
No.
and speak about my books.
Yeah.
And I do, and with my radio shows, that's a form of creativity, because I produce the shows as well as
Yeah.
front them.
Right.
So for me, it's, that's who I am. I'm a promoter. And I love the voluntary work I do. I just wish there was more of
That's
me.
great. Actually, I think what you've touched on there, when you said with the Speakers Bureau and the promoting people, you were helping them. I think
Yes.
that's what a lot of people are missing in their lives, or they don't see in their work, that what they're doing, it's not the work that they're doing, it's the fact that they're helping someone. I mean, I've always said that you can be employed to sweep a factory floor. If someone's prepared to pay you to do that job, it's of value. You're
Yes.
helping them, and you
That's
can
right.
take pride in that.
That's right.
You can take pride in your work no matter what it is. But
The
if
other
you,
thing, yeah, but
yeah,
Jenny, the other thing it's also saying to people is complimenting people. I don't mean empty compliments. I mean,
no, no,
if you know if somebody's really made an effort, or they're looking particularly lovely, or
yeah,
whatever, actually Australians are particularly good at that, and we need to be better at communicating and saying and supporting each other with our words as well as our actions. If
yeah.
somebody looks lovely, to say, look, I love that dress on you, or that colour, or as you can tell, I'm highly visual, and I so, or
Yeah,
but it takes so little. It's
it
what
does.
and what's
Yeah,
this thing about kindness at the moment? There's this bit of a movement afoot
yeah,
about little kindnesses or whatever. It
mm,
takes so little to be kind to people,
it
and
does.
because you don't know their story,
No, no,
and
that's so true.
it might really lift them out of themselves for that day. You don't know what they're about to do. I mean,
Yeah,
what I know is that some people could be really in the depths of despair,
mm,
and just to sort of talk to them, say, look, do you want to go off and have a cup of coffee? That's what
yeah,
we find in own,
yeah,
that it's about being aware of each other,
yeah.
and trying to meet that need. Look, at the end of the day, we're just all human beings trying to live this life as best we can.
We're all in it together, aren't we?
No one's better than anybody else.
No, no.
And we need to, that's what we need. So we need to honour each other,
Mm, mm,
and respect that we are different.
yeah,
But quiet people doesn't mean that they're boring. It just means they're quiet, and they might be waiting for you to ask them a question.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
True. Very
So
true.
anyway, as you can see, I'm fairly passionate about all of this. Um,
Passion is good. Passion is good. Nothing
well,
happens without passion.
well, I have to say, at 71, it's
Are you really?
yeah. So I just hope I don't lose that passion. And I don't mind saying my age, because that's part of being in
Yeah.
own. I mean, we don't say to everybody when they come in, "Well, how old are you?" We
No.
always say, if you want to join own,
Yeah.
if you feel like an older woman,
Yep.
then own is for you. It's not
Yeah.
about we've got to be 60 plus or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
I suppose I'm a bit of a Pollyanna, but I like to be a practical Pollyanna. I like to sort of not only make people feel good about themselves, but I think make them feel that they're worthwhile. I think that's really important.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. Well, I think you've done some worthwhile work. I really
Well,
do.
well, Jenny, one of the best things was meeting you as well. And I'm going to
Oh,
give a plug. Jenny said, "I don't mention me." Jenny's story is also in my first book, Feisty,
it
Fabulous,
is.
and 50 Plus. And what happened is, I often I work very intuitively, and I thought, I'm sure there's a story there with Jenny. And so I said to Jenny, I'd like you to write the last story for the book. And she said, oh, all right. And it was wonderful, because when you find out about people, it also helps you understand a bit more about what makes them tick,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, commonalities, which is great
Yes.
too. Mm,
Actually, yeah, those touchstones, those
yeah,
those
touchstones.
touchstones of
Touchstones.
commonality, and it was actually an interesting experience writing that as well. Sometimes I wish I could go back and rewrite it.
No,
I
what I
don't like
loved
that.
about it, Jenny, was it
Yeah,
was straightforward.
mm,
It's like you are. It's not.
yeah,
It's you say it as you see it, and I think that's especially doing what you do. It's really
yeah,
important that.
yes, yeah, yeah. Brutal honesty is yeah, can be a what do they call it? An asset and a liability at the same time.
Well, I think so. What's the expression? Truth sets you free.
Yes, look,
And I
it
think it
does.
does. And when you write books, it's really important to have somebody
Yeah,
who is on your side, but
yeah,
it tells you the way it is. Like the great thing about working with Kerry Chater, for example, is Kerry is very hardworking
yeah,
and and loves writing and does a
yeah,
lot of writing and and business writing as well, which is
yeah.
one of the things that she used to teach. That's how
Right,
she and I met. I used to find work for her as a writing trainer.
right.
And so it's yeah. So
And Kerry's a no BS person as well.
yes, that's right. Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, it makes life a lot easier when you
Yes.
throw the BS out the door, doesn't it?
Well, that's right, because
Yeah,
she just tells it to me straight.
yeah,
And the other thing that we both agreed on when editing the books was that we didn't want the stories to sound like us.
no, no, you
we
can't do
wanted
that. Yeah,
we wanted to keep the original voice, because otherwise it's to me it's almost a form of abuse to
yeah,
sort of take somebody's story and say, oh look, we don't really like your voice in that, we're going to change it, and you sound a
yeah,
bit working class,
yeah.
so we're going to that's insulting.
It
And
is, it is.
so
Yeah,
what we wanted was the original voice, so our
yeah,
interventions, inverted commas, or our editing was quite minimal.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and that's an art in memoir editing as well, is
Yes,
to retain the author's voice and just help to cut out anything that's drivelly or irrelevant or what have you, and to
that's right.
identify the important stuff. But
That's right.
yeah, yeah, it's wow, very interesting. Well, look, I think I might have to let you go. We both might need to get on with our day.
Yes, and Jenny, thank you. It's just been fantastic.
Oh, thank
Really,
you, Julie.
really, really great. Thank you.
It's Thanks, Julie. You have a great day, and yeah,
And you too.
keep at it. Keep at it. Keep getting out of bed in the morning, girl.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Jenny.
Thanks, Jules.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to an IndieMosh interview with Julie Ankers. If you'd like to learn more about Julie or check out some of her books, then visit indiemosh.com.au or search for her books at your favourite online retailer. I'm Jenny Mosher. Thanks for listening.